The Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry's Professional Practice Group is today hosting an insight into the Nigerian Startup Act in collaboration with the ICT Group. The Startup Act was signed into law by President Buhari on October the 19th, and it seeks to create a conducive environment for Nigerian startups to launch and scale their products. Joining us to discuss the Lagos business environment, startups, jobs, trade, is Mrs. Temitope Akintunde, who's the Director, International and Public Sector Relations for the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry. You're very welcome. Good morning to you.
Good morning. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. What are your thoughts on the startup bill?
Talking about the Startup Act.
Excuse me. Thank you so much. That's correct. It's an act, yes.
Yeah, it's not. I'll call it one of the high points of this administration, looking at the fact that the bill was drafted in July 2021.
Yes.
By July 22, it had been passed into law, and by October, the president had given his assent. This is something that will help startups in the country. It will give them a good regulatory framework, with which a legal and regulatory framework, with which they are able to do a lot of things in terms of startups and things like that. And if you look at the startup, there's also a fund that was attached to it.
Yeah.
And quite a number of people have started to go out there and see how they can take advantage of that fund. Shortly before I came into the studio, I had a discussion with somebody from the Norwegian embassy.
Oh, okay.
And we're talking about the issue of the Startup Bill, the Startup Act. And he was telling me how excited the government of his country was about the Startup Act, and they are thinking of bringing partners into Nigeria in terms of incubators and things like that, you know, to see how they can partner with Nigerians. So you can see that it's something that has a very far-reaching impact, not just for Nigeria, even in terms of our bilateral engagements all over the world. Great.
Encouraging. Lagos dominates the startup ecosystem, and I wonder if you look at this figure, 84%, according to, I think it's Disrupt Africa, a survey that they carried out. So as the director of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, do you want that number to grow, or would you be better to see more competition from other states?
I think for the benefit of Lagos, the number has to be, even for the benefit of Lagos, the number has to be evenly distributed.
Yeah.
Because there's a limit to what a system might be able to accommodate, no matter the system. So it's very important also that this number spread to other parts of the country, even for the sake of our GDP, economic growth. And I think it's also important for other states to also look at the incentives that they can also give, that they can also, the things that they can also do to make such startups easy to, start in their own state. So it's better. It's nice for Lagos State when you have it, but it's actually better for the whole economy, and even Lagos State, for it to actually spread as wide as possible.
Fantastic. But
we can retain the lion chair.
Okay. Of course you would say that.
Yes.
So as the director of the public sector relations at the LCCI, what's your relationship like with the Lagos State government? How would you describe it?
Okay, I'll just talk about the public sector in general.
Okay.
Both at the states and the federal level.
Yep.
It's very important for us to have very strong relations, very strong engagements. We have several platforms for engagements with the public sector in general. And this is very important because we are the voice of the organized private sector.
Right.
So we take up this advocacy with the government, business advocacy, policy advocacies, and things like that. And a very key thing is also that we also act like a bridge, sort of a link, let me use the word link, between the private sector and government, and between the private sector and international community, and at times also even between the government and international community. So it's a
full circle.
Yeah, a beautiful circle of connectivity. Yeah.
Now, I can imagine that jobs are a priority of you at the Chamber of Commerce and Industry as far as the private sector is concerned. If we take a look at some now, these figures, I mean, we've been singing this for a while, that these figures are outdated, but it is what it is. According to the Bureau of Statistics, looking at Lagos jobs, Q4 2020, 37% unemployment, underemployment 4.52, which is pretty low as far as unemployment is concerned. But you put that together and you're over 40%. Who knows? That number may have grown by 2022. Is enough being done to create jobs here in Lagos in your view? What can we do to get more jobs in the commercial capital?
I will speak nationally.
Okay.
Let's
stretch the conversation, yes.
Because if you look at the youth population of Nigeria, it's a little bit worrisome at times. The fact that quite a large population of that youth population, a large percentage of that youth population are unemployed or underemployed nationally. So I think we need to do more. And when we're doing more this time, it's not just about the 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. jobs that we're talking about. We need to do more about entrepreneurial development, about vocational training, about skills nationally. There's a lot of collaboration. Quite a number of international bodies are looking for collaboration in this area. I think it's somewhere that Nigeria needs to wake up to in terms of entrepreneurship development. We need to collaborate and do more to take a lot of youths outside the street, away from the street. One thing is that your population is an advantage when they are gainfully employed.
Very true. Very true.
That's what has happened in China and quite a number of Asian countries. The population is an advantage, but they need to be gainfully employed.
Let's widen the scope now. Let's talk about trade. Our last segment with Chika Mbono, our ICE business analyst, we're looking at the latest trade figures. How would you describe the foreign policy direction of the nation with respect to the outcomes that we're seeing in trade for Nigeria?
Well, at the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry this year alone, I think we've had close to about 30 engagements with about different countries.
That's a lot.
And I think I still have one this afternoon, and I think we still have another one on Friday.
Okay.
But let me just say this, that there's a lot of focus on Nigeria. And I think it's something that on Africa and in Nigeria in particular, and it's something that we as Nigerians will need to take advantage of, both at the government level and the private sector level, and see how we can tap into some of these opportunities. There are some countries that the president has gone to, that he has signed agreements, MOUs, that a lot of people in the private sector don't even know the contents of some of those MOUs. So it's very important that we have these engagements to see how we can go beyond our diplomatic ties to economic ties. And where we have strong diplomatic ties, we can transform them to economic ties. Even though we are doing some of it, if you look at a country like China, China is Nigeria's biggest
trade partner,
in Africa and things like that. But we can still do more. A population of 200 million, over 200 million people, there's still much more that Nigeria can do. If you go to the Balogun markets, look at the volume of transactions that go on daily and things like that. And even in terms of digital economy, see the amount of money, the amount of transactions that go on in Nigeria daily. And one thing about the Nigerian market, why a lot of people are comfortable about the Nigerian market, they see the Nigerian market as a gateway to West Africa because of our population. So while we sign the agreements, we should keep open those important bilateral agreements, not just the diplomatic ones. We should see the economic ties that we can bring out of such agreements, and we can see how to carry along the private sector. So the private sector can know that these things are there, is left for you to take advantage of the opportunity.
Great stuff. What about within Africa, right? Are you, in fact, again, the trade numbers, there's no, I think the Q2 or was it Q1, South Africa just barely made it into the top 5 of Nigeria's top 5 trading partners. There's no African country now in the top 5. The African Continental Free Trade Agreements, trade within Africa, improvements. What do you make of our trade within the continent?
Well, I don't want to say it's disappointing. It's not disappointing, but it could do better.
So it needs improvements.
Yes, and let me tell you one thing that also is responsible for some of this. If you look at our infrastructure at times, you're going from Nigeria to Ghana.
Oh my gosh.
We had people coming for the Lagos International Trade Fair, and there are times they will call you that, oh, see, we're at the border, we're having so issues. And there are times that when you're going even to other parts of the world, you might not have some of these issues. So I think there should be proper linkages. There should be proper alignment in terms of our infrastructure between African countries. There's a lot of potential. The AfCFTA, it opens a window, a door, don't let me call it a window, a door of opportunities for Africans to trade and to improve the trade between African nations. But we have to take advantage of it, remove the barriers, and utilize the opportunities.
So are you optimistic that can happen?
I am optimistic for 2023.
Okay. Well, yes. Well, speaking of 2023, it's, you know, big election, big choices facing Nigerians. Now, as far as leadership is concerned, how do you think, as far as improving trade going forward, well, what's your advice for them?
Okay, let me start from the foreign policy side before I go to the trade side.
Yeah.
But I think in Nigeria, we've not seen so much of a sharp difference in direction in terms of our foreign policy direction from one administration to the other. It's not like what you have in the US, where you're able to have the Monroe Doctrine, the Bush Doctrine, which was a little bit different from the other US presidents.
Yeah.
There's not been that sharp contrast. And I think President Buhari has done a lot of going around selling Nigeria, but we still need to do a lot more in terms of our domestic economy to make to make the opportunities on, you know, at the international horizon very favorable for us. So that's one area that I would like us to look at. In terms of, there's a lot that still needs to be done, you know, domestically, so that we're able to take advantage of those international opportunities that come. I'm optimistic about international trade. I'm very optimistic that our allies are there in terms of trading, but I'm also optimistic, and I hope that we'll get more allies. You know, more trade partners. Yeah, it's very, very important. You know, a lot of relationships are being formed. You know, different. We are in ECOWAS, we are in the UN, we are in WTO, but it's not just to be there, but for the citizens to be able to take advantage that such being a member of such institutions, you know, portend.
Like visa-free travel.
Yes, those are things that we should be able to. And in terms of our foreign policy, I think the next administration will likely also go after getting that permanent seat at the United Nations. I think it's something that has always been on the
back burner.
For any Nigerian administration.
Well, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala is the head of the WTO, so we'll see how things work out. Look, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Temitope Akintunde, Director, International Public Sector Relations, LCCI. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.